don't have a plug-in?
This is my audience. Say hi.
Hi. It's a 3-second delay.
Well, good afternoon. I am here to do my honorary speech today, and I will be honoring a young man in the country that I grew up in. His name is Alfonse. And I grew up with this young man and basically spent the first 5 years of our lives running around naked in the bush, and really enjoyed that. So I'm going to share a little bit about why I want to honor this man and why he is so special and why he made a big impact on my life. As I said, Alfonse is a native from Papua New Guinea, where I grew up. We grew up together, and he lived in the village where my parents were missionaries. And we enjoyed boyhood together, did everything from fishing and hunting and playing games with the village kids, and basically just living as young boys, just from two different wombs. So brothers from two different mothers. As Alfonse grew up and got older, he decided he wanted to get married, and one of the situations that happened was one of the first situations where he ran into a interesting peak in life, I should say. The woman he wanted to marry was a daughter of what New Guinea people would call a big man, or a landowner or a village owner, basically oversees a larger population and has the power or the say in what happens. This man had already had about 4 wives, and he had probably 15 children. His name was Kapia, and Alfonse ended up falling in love with one of Kapia's daughters, and the issue that came up was Kapia also wanted to marry his daughter. So the landowner and this young man ended up getting into a fight over who could marry the daughter. And after this went on for some time, the young man, Alfonse, my friend, ended up taking the daughter and running away for a period of time. They came back several months later, and she was pregnant, and this caused a big uproar in the village, and the big man was not very happy. And what ended up happening is, over there, when there's a tense situation, or you get in a big situation where there's a fight or something's going to take place, all the men take their shirts off, and especially those who want to fight, and you get in a big circle, and everybody grabs their beating sticks. They basically look like 6-foot-long baseball bats. And what took place was this big man and Alfonse got into the center of the ring without their shirts on and began to hit each other until one man couldn't take it any longer. Alfonse nearly killed the big man and ended up winning the young lady for his wife. There was a lot of tension after this, and a lot of hurt in the village and stuff from this situation, but life plays its toll. So Alfonse won, and he stood up for what he believed. And as I'm going to go on, this is basically what I'm honoring this man for, is standing up for what he believed in or what he thought was right. As I said earlier in my speech, that my parents were missionaries. We were there for the objective of sharing the Bible and communicating God's word to these indigenous people. Alfonse became one of the first believers that we had in our tribe, and he continued to follow in his faith to God after he gave his commission to God, or gave his life to God, and was a strong following believer that never varied from what he had given as his commitment. And another thing that happened to Alfonse a little later in life, we had been out of the village for a while, and he had been working with other teachers and stuff in the church and helping to present the gospel to the villagers. And he had gone through a period of time where the villagers would be helpful, and then they would drop off, and he would be again the only man standing. And this played out often in his life. And this last situation where Alfonse was in was when these other villagers from a different tribe across the river came and tried to steal some of our missionaries' belongings. And Alfonse didn't want anything to do with that, so he stood up and tried to stop these men. And Alfonse goes on to say that he ran up the hill to where our houses were to try and save our stuff from being stolen. And he faced 4 men. One had a shotgun, 2 had machetes, and another man had an axe or a hatchet. And when he got up there, they fired the shotgun at him several times, and he got a little scared, so he ran back home and grabbed his bow and arrow and came back up. And when he'd done this, they had moved and he didn't know where they were, so he began sneaking around trying to find out where the men had gone, and ended up running into them at the other missionary's house, one of the other missionaries' houses. At this, they were in close range, had no more shotgun shells, thankfully, and ended up ambushing Alfonse and throwing him to the ground and beating him. And they went to kill him. They took the axe and raised it above his head and started swinging it right towards his face. And Alfonse swears that God turned that head of the axe around, and that axe ended up striking him in the shoulder and breaking his collarbone and several other bones in his shoulder, but did not harm his life at all, other than a little bit of a physical injury. But as I said, Alfonse is just a remarkable man, because throughout his life he decided to stand up for what was right and what was true. And it didn't matter whether anybody was standing with him or not. He stood steadfast, followed God, and it paid off because God protected him. And I guess all I want to say is that I wish I could have that same courage as Alfonse did, and hope to play that out in my life as I live on. So thank you.